This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
World oil supply is expected to closely match demand next year as the wider OPEC Plus group increases production, an OPEC report showed on Monday, marking a change from last month's outlook, which projected a supply shortfall in 2026. OPEC Plus is adding more crude to the market after the OPEC, Russia and other allies opted to unwind some output cuts more rapidly than previously planned. The additional supply has raised concerns of a surplus and weighed on oil prices this year. In its monthly report, OPEC said the world economy continues to show solid growth and it maintained its forecasts for global oil demand to rise by 1.3 million barrels per day this year, and by a slightly faster rate in 2026.
Front-month U.S. crude oil futures ended Monday's trading at their smallest premium since January 2024 over the 7th-month contract, as OPEC Plus ramps up supply while seasonal refinery maintenance in the U.S. pressures demand for prompt barrels. Narrowing backwardation, the market term for immediate deliveries fetching a premium over later deliveries, suggests investors are making less money selling their oil in the spot market because near-term supply is perceived to be ample. A reversal of the spread from a premium to a discount would put U.S. oil futures in a contango for the first time since last January.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
India and the United States are set to hold trade talks this week, with New Delhi pledging to import U.S. energy and gas as it aims to address Washington's concerns over its Russian oil purchases, an official said. Talks were suspended briefly in August after the Trump administration announced tariff hikes of up to 50% on Indian goods, accusing India of financing Russia's war in Ukraine by continuing to buy Moscow's oil despite Western sanctions. However, discussions resumed in September after U.S. President Donald Trump struck a conciliatory tone in public remarks and spoke to Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the phone, raising hopes for a breakthrough.
The International Maritime Organization will meet this week to formally decide whether to impose a carbon emissions price on global shipping, a move supported by an EU-led bloc including Britain, China and Japan but strongly opposed by the U.S. The IMO struck a preliminary deal to charge the global shipping industry for emissions in April after the U.S. pulled out of associated talks, prompting Washington to threaten reciprocal measures against any fees charged on U.S. ships. The April deal is now tabled for adoption at a meeting of the IMO's Environmental Committee scheduled for October 14 to 17, which is expected to include the U.S. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Copper prices jumped on Monday as hopes of easing trade tensions between the U.S. and China and stronger Chinese imports of the industrial metal boosted sentiment, while momentum picked up after U.S. markets opened. Benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange was up 3.1% to $10,843 a metric ton by 16:03 GMT after dropping more than 3% on Friday when President Donald Trump threatened sharply higher tariffs on Chinese imports. COMEX copper jumped more than 5% to hit a session high of $5.165 a lb, or $11,387 a ton.
The global refined zinc and lead markets are set for larger surpluses in 2026, the International Lead and Zinc Study Group said on Monday. The group expects that global supply of refined lead metal will exceed demand by 91,000 tons in 2025 and global supply of refined zinc metal will exceed demand with the extent of the surplus forecast at 85,000 tons. Global demand for refined lead is expected to increase by 1.8% to 13.25 million tons this year and by 0.9% to 13.37 million tons in 2026, the group said, with output climbing 2% to 13.34 million tons in 2025 and 1% to 13.47 million tons in 2026.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Chicago wheat futures sat near a 5-year low on Tuesday as increasing exports from top shipper Russia focused attention on abundant global supply. Soybeans futures edged higher as traders hoped for a deal between Washington and Beijing that would restart Chinese purchases of U.S. beans. Corn steadied after falling in recent sessions as the ongoing U.S. harvest delivered new grain into the market.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.